and nothing was taken away from that.
Okay, well let's go back to these are videos of the 17th and the 18th. Now that's a period where you would have been the holder of the archive, at least for another more than 10 days. So we can presume, I would imagine, that these are videos that would have been downloaded onto either your laptop, if they came before the Scott hard drive was procured, or the Scott hard drive in the period between 18 August and 27 August, or a bit later.
What I was given from Pops, I was given, as I said, and to the best of my recollection, these were given to me on the 17th. Now, we know that some of these videos are taken on the 17th and 18th. Thus, what was given to me possibly wouldn't have included the videos that we're looking at now as the second lot, as you say, that continue after the 16th.
And if they currently reside on your hard drive, how would they have got there?
They would possibly have been brought over when I updated the hard drive from the master hard drive, which ultimately received all of the video footage over time.
So files of the 17th and 18th, you're suggesting, by POPs operators who were operating in Marikana, may only have reached the police archive after the 27th of August.
Well, you're asking questions now that is difficult for me to recall. These are questions which, obviously, at the time, I was not taking notes and writing down exactly who was giving me what when. So I can put myself in a position to discredit myself if I'm saying, yes, I did, or no, I didn't. I basically can't remember, but I'm trying to be as accurate as I possibly can with when I received the video footage.
No, I'll accept that. So would it be correct to say that you may have received these on your original laptop or even on your original Scott hard drive? You may only have received them at a later stage when they had first been made available to whoever was keeping the Brigadier Pretorius hard drive, and they were then copied back to you.
Yes.
Let's then move to a slightly different topic, because the exercise we've just been performing, I would hope, satisfies parties in the Commission that there aren't missing videos from Warrant Officer Masinya and Warrant Officer Ndlovu of the 16th. That's the purpose of this exercise. But that does leave certain other questions unanswered, because it does beg the question of why Warrant Officer Masinya and Warrant Officer Ndlovu didn't take footage on the 16th. And in that regard, I want to put to you that the explanation that's been furnished to us is that their identity as undercover police operatives was exposed at some stage, either in the morning or just after midday. It was reported eventually to Captain Adriau, who in turn reported it to higher authorities who instructed their withdrawal. But I want to put to you that that isn't a satisfactory explanation, because the operation that took place on the afternoon was always one that was going to have a risk of violent confrontation between militant strikers and the SABC. Would you accept that?
Well, we went forward hoping not to, that it would simply, if there was, and at that time when these video operatives withdrew, there was no mention yet that the police was going tactical.
Yes, but let's forget about that for a moment. But let's look to a point later in the afternoon where the police have now decided to go tactical. Police didn't want violence to eventuate, but there was a real risk that violence would eventuate. Will you accept that much?
Yes, I accept that. Yes.
And as a result, the press were never going to be allowed into the operational zone, because you wouldn't want press getting in your way, or one, being at risk, and two, getting in your way when there's a risk of violent confrontation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So undercover SAP's video operators would never have had access to the operation by masquerading as press photographers, because no press photographers were going to have access to the operation. Is that correct?
I can accept that, yes.
And if we go a step further, the operation was always going to be a mobile operation. You accept that?
That's correct.
And so SAP's operator who was going to have to cover it would have had to be mobile too.
That's correct.
It's not something you could do on foot.
That's correct. Or he would have been placed, obviously, there were two of them, I would think. Maybe one in a vehicle and one behind the razor wire line in a static position. But that's, as I say, that's not something I could have called. That would have been either the operational command or the video operators themselves who are trained to know where to position themselves, obviously, when this type of thing is about to occur.
So you're suggesting one could have been put in a vehicle, one could have been put behind the razor wire line in a safe position. But that would then have had to be, if we deal with the safe position, that would have had to be a position where, broadly, where the press were. Is that not correct?
Well, to my knowledge, the press were further back. There was an area that Captain Adra had demarcated for the press, if I'm correct. But obviously the police video camera operator is not limited to their area. He's still a police official. He can move within the ranks of, as I say, these members are trained. They know how to execute their function.
But if there'd been a concern to preserve the identity or the secrecy of the identity of the police photographers, one wouldn't have wanted them moving around in a place to which the press didn't have access. Is that not correct?
I don't think that was the issue. I think the issue was that they wanted to go closer to try and gain intelligence, and they're posed as media representatives. Because video filming from afar, you can't get the audio that is being spoken. So for them, as I say, they don't need to masquerade as media. They were doing that, obviously, which I know is operating outside the confines of Standing Order 262. But simply to try and gain information or intelligence for the police at that time.
My question was pointed slightly differently. It was, if you wanted to protect the identity of the police video photographers, which I presume would have been a concern, would you accept it would have been a concern?
Well, it would have been a concern if they were close to the crowd. If they've been identified as policemen, they're as good as standing at the police line. There's no need to push them as far back as the media, for that matter.
So on the 16th, at the time, leave aside what happened at 1 o'clock, but assume that their identity hadn't been exposed. Would there still have been a need to protect their identity when the operation started?
No, I think they would have taken up the role alongside their colleagues, as they are trained to do in any pop operation.
The bulk of the operation was to happen to the west of the barbed wire line, a long distance from the safe zone. Is that correct?
Once the dispersion, yes, had completed, there would be certain strikers that had moved off into the open fields, but obviously we had the high-risk arrest teams waiting to go into the rocky areas at Kopi 1 and 2. So it's possible that in both areas, both environments, there would have still been activity ongoing.
And you'd have wanted your video operators to cover the dispersion operation?
Well, I'm speaking now on behalf of the operational commander, which, and obviously putting myself into his shoes, which I'm not sure is the right thing to do at this time. But if it were me, I would be expecting to have at least one possibly with me, and another that would be filming something that may be going on with the teams behind.
And we're aware from video footage that's been shown in this commission that there were a range of videos taken from within armoured vehicles on the 14th and the 15th. If I can ask you to look at, say, slide 98 of Exhibit L, if we can call up slide 98 of Exhibit L. And if we can just start playing that video for illustrative purposes. Have we got a problem with the video on 98? Well, we don't need to show it. Will you accept? I mean, you've assembled this exhibit. Will you accept that this is a video slide, and the video is a video taken from within a Nyala, and what it shows is the first engagement with the strikers on the 14th?
Yes, I accept that.
And the video is taken from within the Nyala. If we again, I don't want to waste commission time by showing the video, but you'll recall that there is video footage taken from within a Nyala of the NUM and AMCU attempts to engage the strikers on the evening of the 15th.
Yes.
For the record, those are exhibits BB5 and BB6. And we can see from your exhibit 63 that the relevant slides on the 14th and 15th are sourced in a directory which is called /videos /15th pop and ci /warrant officer nong pop. And we can, are you aware that Warrant Officer Nong was the operator who was filming that footage from within a Nyala on the 14th and the 15th?
Yes, again, in listening to consultation with Warrant Officer Nong, he admitted to having the video camera in his Nyala. I'm not sure if it was him filming on the 14th, but it was in the Nyala he was driving. On the 15th, he says that he took the video footage, but he was not in possession of that camera on the 16th.
Okay, but and the point that you've made in the process there is Warrant Officer Nong was actually the driver of the Nyala. He was the driver of Papa 1, so we can understand why he wouldn't have been videoing the operation on the 16th. He had other functions. But it would have been possible for another POPs video operator to video from within a Nyala on the 16th, would it not?
It would have been, yes.
And have you made any inquiries as to why this did not take place?
I've relied on what I've been told, and that is the misunderstanding of those two video operators themselves, who said when they were told to retreat, they understood it mean to retreat away from the operation as a whole. I haven't gone further into detail into examining why or what they've done. In fact, haven't consulted with them. I haven't seen that as part of my purpose or job.
Okay, so that is the limit of the explanation that you can provide as to why there wasn't video footage from within the Nyalas on the 16th. Well, we can take that further with possibly with the video operators themselves and possibly also with Brigadier Karlitz, who was ultimately in charge of them during the operation. On the score, I want to go back to the deleted files briefly. Those are the J26 files.
Chair, may I request some direction? Clearly, with the position of the evidence leaders not being, say, parties necessarily, I just wish to understand when they say they are not convinced that those are the reasons for the withdrawal of the operators. Am I to take it that's going to be their position? They're going to give us evidence in relation to that matter, or they're just probing?
The answer to that, Mr. Jefferson?
Sorry, I didn't understand myself to say I'm not convinced that the reason offered was the reason for the withdrawal of the operators.
Said it's not a satisfactory explanation.
You see, the point being, if you're suggesting that there are certain things that you're not convinced about, Mr. Semenya wants to know, does that mean that the countervailing evidence is going to be put before the Commission upon which the lack of conviction will be based?
Well, maybe I should clarify what I intended to convey, which is not that it's not a satisfactory explanation for the absence of video footage on the 16th, because at best it explains why the video operators weren't there on foot, as it were.
No, I can understand your attitude may be that you will contend in due course that the explanation given isn't a satisfactory one. Then Mr. Semenya knows that all that he has to deal with is a contention at the end of the day. If on an argument, alternatively, if what you said is capable of meaning that there will be countervailing evidence, then he's entitled to know at some stage what the countervailing evidence is, so he can deal with it. I think that's his point. Am I correct, Mr. Semenya?
It's indeed the case, Chair.
It's essentially a point about argument. I'm not suggesting that we have evidence that the evidence leaders disappeared for a different reason, that the video operators disappeared for a different reason.
Yeah, I think that clarifies the point Mr. Semenya raised.
Yeah. Chairperson, I was going to go to the deleted videos, but let me return to that at a later stage when we've done the investigation that we need to do in relation to the hard drive that's been made available to us. If I can move to a slightly different topic, and I'm now getting to the topic where I'm going to put to you our concerns about the video materials, and I'm going to ask you to try to satisfy our concerns and to satisfy the Commission and the parties that there's no basis for our concerns. If you were to estimate the total time you spent studying the videos and photos, how much time do you think you've spent doing that?
I think the majority of that was done in the month of October. Somewhat at Roots in September, but very limited with regard to the SABC footage in September. We didn't have all of it, and some of the more critical footage which we've included in Exhibit L at that time. But there was significant time. I wouldn't want to put it into hours or days or so on. And as I said, I had help. I had Captain Adria helping me. I had others helping me that were also sifting through videos to find parts in specifically the open source media, because we had many, many DVDs that were collected on behalf of that to go through. So I don't think it's as substantial as the amount of time that the evidence leaders have had, obviously having up until now to review that. We had up until the beginning, first week of November, to do as best job as we could before we actually submitted. So,
can I ask you to give me an estimate, though? Are we talking hours, days, weeks?
Well, no, if you put it together, it would be days, days on end, probably a week of days.
40 hours?
No, I'm talking full days.
24 hours?
Yeah. No, we sat for
Police work differently to us. So you're looking at close to 100 hours?
Well, yeah. What would you want to estimate? 100, 150 hours, possibly more.
Okay. Would it
Sounds like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks of work, actually.
Chairperson, I know even at Roots, and this is why a lot of this is difficult to recollect, because I was sitting, even after others had gone, till late hours in the evening. I know when working in Rustenburg to put together Exhibit L, there were some nights that we went right through in trying to just photo sequence on times and trying to watch. This is why we got extra help with people just to look at some of the videos so that they could assist us. Because we would get long videos from SABC, for instance, where it would be an hour of footage, and you had to find inside of that where the nude broadcasts were to find the actual footage which was dealing with the situation. So there were many, many hours which probably escalate into days upon days of doing that. But once we got the main focus and the track, it assisted to know this is where we are going. But I can even say to date, I don't think we've been through it all. Still, that which we've seen from the police, we've gone through each of those videos individually. But open source footage from media, etc., there wasn't enough time for all of that.
But would it be fair to say that as a result of the time you've spent studying the photos and the videos, you have an eye for detail on the photos and videos that makes you better than almost anybody else at picking up what's relevant and what's not relevant?
I think it goes, and just to say beyond that, I do have an eye for detail regardless of the amount of time spent on it. So I picked up things which, not necessarily through studying, but just through glancing. And that just to say that because small things matter.
I appreciate that. To me, you're offering two reasons in that explanation. The first is that you didn't think to check the properties of the material. And the second is that you were comfortable in relying on the person's discretion who was giving you the material for collation. Let's take them one at a time. You see, Colonel, well, do you know about file properties?
I do now.
Did you know then?
More thoroughly. No, not particularly. I know that they exist. I've never had any reason to go into them or to figure out how they work or why they work.
Well, Colonel, I must put to you that I don't find that explanation a satisfactory explanation, because I want to put to you a document that you furnished to us on the 31st of October. It's going to be Exhibit J 30. I wonder if we can call it up. It's a document that is on page 202 of the Commissioner's files. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, it's
202. File 3.1. Will you describe to the Commissioners what this document is?
This was a document that somewhere in the month of October that I set up to try to formulate a timeline of the different cameras and videos. And by doing that, I actually utilized the times on the camera at the time, looked at my watch's time and got the difference, similar to what's been done with the ETV timing. And then from that, I was able to go back to the photographs to look at the time that the photograph was taken, which I must admit I still had difficulty in doing because I didn't know whether between created and modified which was the correct one. But in saying that, this document was also created after the video materials and the photographs were already given to me. They were not given to me after this document.
Well, I'll get to that issue first later. But can I first just clarify? To do this exercise, you have to look into the file properties of a camera, of a video or photograph file.
Yeah, I know that you can go in the computer to details where the files are, and you click the details button, and next to that it gives you the name of the photo, and it gives you, I think it's modified, and that is generally the creation date.
And as you say there, you were using the time found in the properties of the photographs from the specific cameras. That's how you prepared this exercise.
Yes.
So you wanted to put together as complete an integrated timeline of video and photographic evidence as you could. And in order to, if I might say, mesh the different sources of photographic and video material onto one timeline, you had to look into the properties of individual cameras to see at what time particular photographs were taken. Would that be correct?
Of the photos themselves.
Of the photographic files themselves. Now, I want to put to you that if you are sufficiently concerned to perform this exercise, it's very difficult to accept that you wouldn't be looking at a sequence of photographs which has file names that are obviously discontinuous. And you wouldn't be picking up that there are missing photographs. What's your response to that?
I think it's said in paragraph 45.5. I relied on the person's discretion, etc. If somebody said to me, as they did, that it was simply a blurred photograph, it was not of any benefit, I accepted that on their word that was the case.
But Colonel, someone can only say to you, this is a blurred photograph or it's not relevant if you first ask them, why isn't photograph number 127 here?
Well, that was the case when you requested that some of these members come back to furnish the gaps. And when I had to interview them in the commission at the police's office at Rustenburg, those were the answers I was getting. That's why I've related it in the statement.
Yes, Colonel, but that's not an answer to my earlier question, which was, why were you not concerned about identifying missing photos at a time when you were sufficiently concerned about preparing an integrated timeline, that you were delving into file properties for harmonizing the time on one camera card with the time on another?
But I'm not sure what you'd like to hear, but as I'm telling you that what was given to me was given to me. And when I figured out that I needed to time sequence it specifically, what the names of the photos were not that important to me. What was important to me was then, in the details, the modified, to find the times that they were taken so that I could make sure that the timeline was running effectively. Be it an oversight on my part, but it wasn't something that perturbed me that there may be missing photos or video files.
Colonel, let me give you an example. Let's take...
I don't want to break it an inconvenient stage for you. Is this a convenient stage to take the tea adjournment, or would you wish to round this point off first before we take the tea adjournment?
Mr. Chairperson, this point has some way to run, so I think we should take the tea adjournment.
Take the tea adjournment. The Commission resumes. Colonel, you're still under oath. Mr. Shasterson.
Colonel, I want to illustrate the problem that we have by looking at the photographs of Warrant Officer Ramanala that were provided to us on the SABC hard drive. And that will be Exhibit J66. A screenshot of the directory is at page 116 of the 116 J66. If we can call up J66. 116. File 1. Now, Colonel, this is a screenshot taken from the directory of the SABC hard drive. The subdirectory photographs and the further subdirectory Thursday the 16th. It's the subdirectory in which photographs of the 16th were originally contained within the SABC hard drive. And will you confirm that what we see here is what you would see when you open your computer in a directory? You'll see these little thumbnails when you look at them in a directory in the computer.
I can confirm it's one of the views that you get. It depends on your computer how its settings are set to how it should open. It can open in just normal text as well, but pretty much what you see.
Well, that's good enough for me. I accept it's not the only view that you get, but it is one of them that one does get. Look at this set of photographs. It jumps from 67 to 70. Then it goes neatly in sequence from 70 to 78. So we have a 70, a 71, a 72, a 73, a 74, a 75, a 76, a 77, a 78. Then it jumps again to 105. And then it continues neatly in sequence from 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122. So when you look at it like that, would you accept that it does leap out to you that the set is not complete, that in particular it's missing 78, what's between 78 and 105? Would you accept that?
I'd say if that's what you're looking for, yes.
And when we received it, it leapt out to us, and we asked for files 79 to 104 from SABC, and we were duly provided 79 to 104. You're aware of that?
It was not done through myself, obviously. It was done through the chain, but I'm presuming it was done as you requested it.
And you're suggesting that when you looked at videos and photographic directories that were given to you, it didn't leap out to you, for instance, that the photographs of Warrant Officer Ramanala in this directory have from 79 to 104 missing?
No. I'm not even sure what the photographs from 78 and backwards are, if they are of Marikana or not.
I want to come back to your explanation of that, because you broadly provided two reasons. The one was you were happy to leave it to the discretion of the individuals who were presenting the material, and the other was that you didn't think to look at properties. I've addressed the question of properties, and I don't want to go back to there, but let's look at this explanation about discretion. You presumably didn't, you wanted everything from people. You didn't want their selection. Is that correct?
Ideally, yes.
And you acknowledged earlier that it was important for you to have everything because the Commission would need to have everything.
Well, to be honest with you, I was thinking about I needed to have everything because I needed to see what was going to go into Exhibit L. Remembering that the nodal point became the nodal point at roots. And from there on, as far as the discretion of the materials, what was there, what wasn't there, was realistically not my concern. I was looking for important photographs or video footage which would be applicable to the presentation.
Yes, and when we traversed this ground earlier, you conceded, or you accepted, that because you had spent so much time looking at the videos, you would have an eye for detail and relevance which the average SABC operative might not have.
But we need to clarify that. We're talking about the detail in the photograph. That is what I was referring to.
Yes, that's what I was referring to also, but the corollary of that is that if there is detail in the photograph that you will pick up, but a SABC video operative may not, it's very important for you to see the full set and not to leave it to the discretion of the individual operative to give you what he or she thinks is relevant. Is that not so?
It is so, but again, I say it could be it was an oversight on my part to have looked at every file name to make sure that they were all running in sequence.
Well, I can't take it further at this stage, Colonel, but
I asked a question about that. If you look at paragraph 45.4 of your statement, 88820, have you got that in front of you? Third and fourth line. Persons at first seemed selective on providing photographs, etc. Now, from the fact that you use the words persons at first seemed selective, it indicates that at first, i.e. when they gave you the photographs, they were selective, or they appeared to you to be selective. In other words, you were aware of the fact that they were being selective. That is to say, they were leaving things out. But you gave the answer, which we find in the last sentence of 45.5, that wasn't a matter of concern to you because you relied on their discretion to give you material for you relied on the discretion of the people. So these two paragraphs seem to me to indicate that you were aware that they were being selective when they gave you the photographs. In other words, you were aware that there were gaps, but it didn't worry you because you relied on their discretion. Isn't that a fair interpretation of what you said?
It is, Commissioner, and at Marikana, when we initially started building the presentations for the media and so on, there were only selected photographs given through, thinking it was for that case. And then afterwards, people were requested to give everything, that they needed to give everything through. But I didn't think to go and check then, when members were now producing this is my everything, that it truly was the lot. So initially, when people were giving photos through, it was mentioned that we needed to build a presentation for the media, and people were obviously being selective in what they were providing because they thought this would help, that would help, until it was clarified with them.
Sure, I don't understand. When you say in that statement that persons at first seemed selective, are you saying that at the time you were first given possession of the photographs, you knew that there was some missing? Is that what you're saying?
I'm speaking about the time at Marikana, specifically of one person that was in the helicopter that provided not all, and I knew it was not all, of the photographs at that time. Subsequently, because they thought, and because they showed the photographs on the phone, but they only downloaded what was necessary at that time for the presentation, being selective in that manner. There were the others that were being selective, which I found out later after the evidence leaders identified the gaps, when I had them at the commission in Rustenburg, where they actually said, but this doesn't say anything or show anything, or etc. Those were the explanations I was getting, that they were being selective in the sense that it's not going to assist in any way. Not understanding, as I was it myself at that time, before that time, not understanding that every single one needs to be there in order to show that we are not hiding something, because that was not on our minds, that there was something to be hidden.
In the last sentence of 45.4, you talk about these persons who seemed selective, and you say, but they had to later be requested to provide everything. And when was that later request to provide everything made?
Again, Commissioner, on two occasions. One was at the commission, at the Marikana, after we started building the presentations and so on, then realizing that not all the footage there had been given through. And the other time was once the evidence leaders had recognized it and also said, we need these gaps filled. And there was actually an email which was sent out which was addressed, and the members came in, gave their footage, and those that had issues or had deleted it gave statements to that regard, which we believed was acceptable.
Are you saying that after the first request, you assumed that they'd given everything?
After the first request?
You told us there were 2 requests.
Well, there were numerous requests.
But you talked specifically about 2. When I asked you what was meant by that passage I read you, but they had later to be requested to provide everything. I asked you when the request to provide everything was made. You said it was twice. Once at Rustenburg, you said, and then later on as well. So now, so the question is, when the first request was made, and they brought you material, did you assume at that stage that you'd got everything?
No, I'm speaking specifically to the photographs of Colonel Vermaak, and I understand that at that stage, he as well as he was looking at the presentation as well for the media. We were trying to see what to put in, and I know I didn't have everything. Subsequently, later, he was requested to provide everything. But the other persons that we're speaking about, specifically the crime intelligence or others that were identified by the evidence leaders, that's a separate case. Those ones I was also not aware of. I was, however, aware of Colonel Vermaak's on his BlackBerry specifically, because those were important to us for the presentation. We wanted to know, because initially I think we got the 2 or 3, which showed the movement of the crowd, and we knew there were more.
When I asked you about these requests, and you said there were 2 requests, may I ask you, the first request then that you referred to, was that solely directed to Colonel Vermaak, not to anybody else?
From what I can remember, I don't think it was solely directed to him. As I say, General Annandale on that night made a request. The photos were slow in coming in, and I can understand that, and so the request was repeated. My reference is specifically to Colonel Vermaak's photographs with regarding the presentation, that I did know that there were more than what I'd received. But people at that stage, as I say, and maybe the commission hadn't been announced yet, but people at that stage were giving what they thought was necessary in order to provide the picture, and not just everything. And again, then there was the second occasion where the gaps were officially identified through the properties.
I don't know that I understand your answer. I'm not suggesting it's necessarily your fault. After the first request, you say it wasn't only to Colonel Vermaak, it was others as well, and you were then provided with material. Did you then assume that you'd been given everything? Or were you aware of the fact that you had not been given everything? And did you only then make the second request after the evidence leaders had raised the matter with you, as you say in paragraph 40, the first sentence of paragraph 45.5?
It is like that, Commissioner. After that first request, when we received, the official request was when we actually realized that there were gaps. So it was on that basis that, on their discretion, the members bringing their stuff, I, on face value, took it that they were giving us everything that they had.
If you'd looked at the point being put to you is, if you'd looked at what they gave you and had a look at the properties and the numbers and so on, it would have jumped out at you that there were things that you were not given. That's the point being put. I'm not sure that I understand your answer to it.
Chairperson, as I mentioned, I wasn't specifically looking at numbers on photographs in sequence and so on. And again, oversight from my side, if there was a number not there, which I don't recall looking for anyway, it wasn't something that I focused, that I had a look and said, well, we're missing a photo, and where's this one, and so on. I took it on face value that what they gave me was what they had. And that if something was deleted, it was deleted on good intention, that it was simply a blurred photo or something insignificant. And I mean, to just maybe elaborate on that, when we were made fully aware of this, we went to lengths to get all these people in, to ask them and to tell them, and that's why when I was also made aware of it properly in Rustenburg at the Commission, and the individuals would come in, that's where I got some of the explanations about, oh, it's blurred and it's not this, and that's where we said to them, but we need them all.
What do you mean by saying you were made aware of it properly? Does that imply that you were made aware of it, but somehow it was something that you didn't focus on? I mean, I don't understand the use of the word properly in this context.
I think maybe I've used that word improperly, with respect, Commissioner. But the technical side of it, when we were made aware of look here, it must go in sequence. We're missing 2 photos here, etc., etc. Because, and maybe it's in hindsight now, but when I look back, some of the members' cameras were utilized on other operations, and I think some of them even on personal photographs. So when you come in with that and it suddenly starts here instead of back there, you know, those were the type of understandings.
Yeah, but if the first set of pictures relate to what happened in the afternoon of the 16th of August, and there's a gap, and then the later pictures also the afternoon of the 16th of August, it's not likely that any private pictures of them taken in between, is it?
Chair.
I mean, that's not a suggestion that'll stand up, will it?
No,
No,
I agree with
Chair.
you there. I agree with you there.
At least the photos that we're looking at, the witness said he's not even aware if the first set of them related to the events of Marikana. At least the one that was shown on screen.
I made the comment, I don't know what the value of it is, but we'll think about that in due course. Carry on, Mr. Chasterton.
Well, maybe we can move to some of the missing videos. And let's start with Captain Nell's videos. Now, they were taken in a helicopter that was commanded by Brigadier Fritz. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of that, yes.
And Brigadier Fritz is your immediate superior officer within the SDF, as I understand it.
That's correct. Was.
Was at the time.
Yes.
And he was the one who tasked you to go to Marikana.
Yes.
I presume, well, do you have a close relationship with Brigadier Fritz? Did you have a close relationship with Brigadier Fritz?
We're colleagues. We're not house friends, or we don't associate after work hours, no.
Have you worked together with him on
Yes.
many operations? And I presume in the nature of the work that the SDF does, you have to depend on one another more than colleagues in other lines of work. Would that be a fair
Well, I think
presumption?
That would be wrong to say, because the NIU would cry foul, as would the TRT. I think any grouping of men that have to stand together in difficult circumstances would say the same. But yes, it is that way.
Put it this way, that in the line of work that you do, the stakes are often frequently higher than in the line of
Yes.
work that I do. And you would expect your SDF colleagues to look after you, would you not?
Yes,
And you would be expected to look after them as similarly,
yes.
particularly your senior officers.
Well, it makes no difference whether he's a senior officer or a junior. He's a colleague, and if his life is in danger, that's what we do.
If we go to your statement at paragraph 47.5 and 47.6, you describe the circumstances in which
There's something wrong with your numbers, because my copy's only got 47.1.
it's a moment of dyslexia from me, Chair. It's 45.7.5 and 45.7.6. I beg your pardon. And it's page 129.
Thank you.
There you state that you received both Captain Nell's photographs and his videos on the 6th of September 2012 at Roots. Is that correct?
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
The set that was initially provided to you by Captain Nell.
I believe so. It looks like it, yes.
And was that the set that you in turn provided to the evidence leaders?
Well, it's the set that I downloaded onto the police's hard drive. It wasn't me who provided it over to the attorney group or to yourselves. No.
So it runs 223, 224, 225, 226, 227, 228, 231. Did you view these videos when they were given to you by Captain Nell on the 6th of September?
I believe I would have.
And if we look at them now, it seems fairly obvious that at the very least 229 and 230 are missing from that set. Will you accept that?
Yes, I do.
Did you subsequently obtain a full set from Captain Nell?
We did it, well, at that stage I wasn't in charge of the police's hard drive any longer, so, but I do believe he would have brought them into the police office, downloaded the full set, and from there it would have been given to the evidence leaders as a full set.
Have you seen a full set of Captain Nell's videos?
Yes. When he brought them in, I was actually there in the room when he was downloading.
I see. Can I show you another screenshot? It will be Exhibit 60, J 68, pages 112 to 113 of that file. J 68.
Also Captain Nell.
This is the full set, or what has been presented to the evidence leaders as the full set of Captain Nell's videos. And here we see two interesting features. The first is that there was indeed a gap in Captain Nell's videos between 228 and 231. There were videos 229 and 230, but there was also another video. The sequence didn't end at 231, it actually ended at 232. Would that be correct?
Yes, I see so.
Now, when Captain Nell gave you the videos on the 6th of September, did you notice that it wasn't a full set?
No, I didn't.
Did you view the videos at the time?
I went through them. I would think I did, because I would have gone through them to see if there's anything applicable for the presentation.
Well, can I show you a screenshot from video 231, which was the last of that sequence? Chair, this will be J 69, and it's at page 111 of the file. And this is at 2 seconds of Captain Nell's video 231. Would you accept that this shows footage of, well, what is actually the Northwest water cannon firing water at scene 2?
I just want to clarify if it has to be the one which was shooting blue water from the recollections I've done. Probably run out of dye, but shooting white water now, coming around the north side.
Well, it doesn't have to be, I mean, it is in fact the Northwest water cannon shooting from the northern side, firing water, not blue dye. Okay. But when you look at the screenshot, do you recognize it as a water cannon shooting water at scene 2?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that footage of scene 2 is particularly rare?
I would, yes.
And after seeing this video when you first received it on the 6th of September, were you not interested in looking at the preceding clip in the sequence to see if it may throw some light on scene 2?
No.
So although you now had some footage that showed that there was a camera above scene 2, you didn't think to look, well, is there more footage around scene 2 on this video?
No, because, as I say, we had so much that we were trying to go through in photographs, in open source video of the media and so on. And ourselves, at the time, when this was given to me at Roots, scene 2 was not in particular dealt with. There had to be consultations thereafter. And I think it may even be shown in the first presentation, which was given at the end of Roots, that there's not much with regard to scene 2. We just didn't have much. And we were actually sequentially trying to build the presentation as we were going. So it was to get scene 1 and to slowly move on with the whole presentation.
Precisely because there wasn't much on scene 2, weren't you particularly interested in what this video footage might show about scene 2?
Well, you're asking me a question that I can't particularly even remember watching it. I would have watched it. I don't particularly even recall what's in that video.
When did you do the scene 2 exercise for the purposes of the presentation?
We got together in Rustenburg, and I think it was late September, could even have been in October, where we actually identified, but we ourselves need to have better clarity of what happened. And the different groupings were called up and had to give their versions, not just commanders, but members that were participating there to give their versions of what actually happened, so we could have a better idea to input into the Exhibit L.
And at that stage, did you not go back to see what video footage you did have of scene 2?
No.
Why not?
What I had viewed at the time at Roots and what I was viewing all the way through, if at that stage what I saw and I thought was maybe important, I would take out and I would work and put into the presentation. As I say, I know we're isolating a sequence of videos now, but there was a lot of media footage, etc. I know scene 2 was rare.
There wasn't any media footage on scene 2, was there?
No, that's why I'm
So
saying.
that's an irrelevancy, surely.
Yeah, no, I'm saying there was much media footage when we were at Roots that we were trying to work through. And I know that scene 2 was rare. But as I say again, I know what you're in essence asking. Why didn't I go back to see where there were other... I didn't. It never crossed my mind to either.
When did you first realize that the sequence of videos from Captain Nell was incomplete?
When we were made aware by the evidence leaders.
And do you recall when that was?
No, not particularly.
Maybe I can help you on that score. If I can hand in as Exhibit J36 an email from the SABC attorneys on the 8th of November. It's at pages 189 to 190 of that file. It will be, sorry, I've lost it now, J36. If we can call that email up. We have a difficulty with the screen. Colonel, do you have a copy of that email to hand?
Yes.
And commissioners, do you have a copy accessible? It's file 3.1 pages 189 to 190. Okay. Apparently, our technology in the corner does not extend to opening emails, only video files. If I can then read it out for the benefit of anyone who doesn't have it in front of them, it's dated 8 November 2012. It's in fact addressed to me. Dear Matthew, we refer to the meeting that was held on 2012-11/07 at 1400 hours between Brigadier Pretorius, Lieutenant Colonel Scott, Colonel Victor, Advocate Wesley, and yourself per video phone. If I might just interject there, Colonel, I've never owned a video phone, but will you confirm that what actually happened was I was called on a cell phone from time to time during the course of that meeting?
Yes.
All alleged outstanding issues as mentioned in mail were addressed. Captain Nell. All outstanding photos and videos were submitted except for one photo that could not be found as it was deleted. Captain Nell submitted a statement to that regard attached to this email, copy of statement given to Advocate Wesley. And in fact, the statement that was attached was the statement, the affidavit of Advocate Nell that we have just handed in as J59. Would you confirm that?
Yes.
We'll get to the balance of the email later when we deal with other sources of video, but for present purposes, on the 8th of November, all outstanding photos and videos were submitted to the, at a meeting on the 7th of November, all outstanding photos and videos were submitted to the evidence leaders. How soon before that would the outstanding Captain Nell videos have reached the SAPS, well, reached yourself and SAPS from Captain Nell?
Well, I think you're asking me for a date now. And that's,
well, an estimate. Well, are we talking days, weeks?
It could have been the same day. It could have been the day before.
So it's around that time.
Yeah. It would have been made, obviously, on your request, which I don't see a date to.
Would you accept that the request was in fact 31 October, which is what our records reflect.
Working from that, we would have had to have contacted these members, had them come in, but I wouldn't be able to give an exact date of when that is occurring.
So it's between the 31st of October and the 7th of November. It's in that week.
Yeah.
And you say that is the first time that you became aware of the fact that Captain Nell's videos, that the sequence provided to you was incomplete.
Yes.
We've maybe we should now see what the missing videos show. And if I can ask that video 229 be played, it's exhibit CC32. CC32, it's an existing exhibit.
How long will this video take? The reason I say that is it's now 5 to 4. If it's going to take 5 minutes, it's fine. If it's going to take longer.
It's a short video, Chair. Can we play CC32? If we can just pause the video. Would you agree, Colonel, that the person opening the door of the helicopter is in fact Sergeant Fenter, the flight assistant, the air assistant officer on that helicopter?
We can't see it, but I believe it to be, yes.
And what is she doing? What is she about to do on this video?
Well, I've been made to understand in talking to the colleagues that were there that she was about to throw a stun grenade.
I see. Well, let's play and we'll see that the video does in fact show that. We can just pause there. Can you see two stun grenades on her seat there, one in her right hand?
Yes, I do.
If we can continue. If we can pause there. Are you able to identify the position of the helicopter from the landmarks in the background?
Well, from what I can see, it's to the west, probably well, not even northwest, more directly west, and distance-wise, I'm not sure, probably a kilometer from, that's probably Kopi 3.
I wonder if we can, for the benefit of the record, describe, when you say that's Kopi 3, we're referring to the bushes,
Green bushes, yes.
That are visible just below the top of the video image to the right of the edge of the window on the right-hand side. I'm not sure if that's a useful description. Chair, are you able to...
Edge of the right, or on the right or the left?
The edge of the right-hand window, the left edge of the right-hand window.
Yes, I think we must also record the point in the video where it's been stopped, because Ms. Pillay is normally very good at that. Or Mr.
Can I ask Mr. Wesley to tell us the exact point of the video at which we have stopped?
.5406.
So it's 54.06 seconds into the video.
Yes.
And the bushes to which you refer are visible in the right, close to the left edge of the right window that we see. I wonder if you can just, I suppose you can't. Perhaps Mr. Wesley can put a point on those bushes.
Yeah, no, I see them. I'm just wondering, it's probably the rear, it's the right-hand side rear passenger window, the front frame thereof.
And you estimate that that's approximately that the shot is taken approximately 1 kilometer to the west of that.
Yeah,
that copy.
It's difficult to estimate on this, but it looks about that if I look at the ground coverage and I look at the size of what is to be copy 3 in the background.
Well, maybe we don't need at this point to show the rest of the video, which speaks for itself. But maybe if I can take you to your it wasn't evidence, but your statement when you were presenting the police presentation on day 12, which is at page 1327 to 8 of the record. One, two, three, 7, 8, where the chairperson asked you, there was evidence that stun grenades were also thrown from a helicopter. I'm not sure if that was over scene 2 or scene 1. Are you able to help us on that? And your response was, I'll help you, chairperson, just to rectify that. 33 should read 34, less than lethal in the subtotal. And regarding the stun grenades used here, this is at scene 2, the copy 3. The stun grenades were thrown out of the helicopter are allegedly on wayward areas, not at scene 2. Would you stand by that description?
Yes.
If we can then go to what Sergeant Fenter had to say about her throwing of stun grenades, and that is Exhibit J 55. Pages 78 to 79.
The full reference, J 55, yes, page?
J 55, pages 78 to 79.
This is file 3.1.
File 1.
Oh, thank you.
And if we can call up the second of those pages. I beg your pardon, Chair.